Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, remember in Wayne's World when they're like, we're in Delaware. We're not in Delaware. We're just a little north of there. Tony, we're in New Jersey.
You can tell we're in New Jersey because we said we are. Tom, do we need to get right away to the elephant in the room, or if you will, the cot of shame?
Okay, so we're in our hotel room right now in New Jersey. We are going to Rutgers. We're like 10 minutes from the Rutgers campus right now. There are three of us traveling. There's myself, there's Tony, there's producer Kevin. Hotel rooms only come with two beds. That's how hotel rooms work. So one of us on these trips has to sleep on the rollaway cot. So we decided, what's the best way to do this? Well, we do a bold prediction segment. And one of us has to win, and one of us has to lose. That's how it works. So the loser has to sleep on the cot of shame. Tony, this week I am the sleeper on the cot of shame. It doesn't look too shameful, really. It looks fairly comfortable, and it was a long drive, and we're doing a bunch of podcasts, so I'm probably going to be pretty tired, so it probably will be okay. But just know, deep in my heart, I will feel shame sleeping on the cot, knowing that my predictions, while bold, while significantly more bold, in fact, than yours, were somewhat less correct.
Very much less correct. And the thing that I liked is you tried to bring race car sides along to put on the bed, and we said, no race car sides. You can't make a cool cot of shame. You have to be in a shameful cot of shame. Mm-hmm. And so that will be very fitting to you as your legs hang off and probably dangle onto the floor. Mm. So I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be totally fine. So, yes, we are here in New Jersey getting ready for the Ohio State Rutgers game. Normally a game that is never close. And so when you have a line that is like 15 and a half, like 17 points seems close, it is close. We'll see how close that is. And I think for me, what it comes down to is I expect the Ohio State offense to do enough. I have them winning 38-17. The way that Rutgers stays in this, and I keep going back to it on every show we do, it's Noah Vedral, it's Isaiah Pacheco, it's picking up first downs on third down, it's just keeping the ball away from Ohio State. That to me is the entire key, and yet it still may not be enough. Like, you can keep the ball, but then Ohio State scores on three plays on a 47-yard pass play to Garrett Wilson. So there's going to need to be just more than possession, don't you think?
Well, here the tricky thing about possession is you need to give it up. Either you hold the ball for 30 minutes, which is pretty much impossible to do, or you have to score a touchdown or kick a field goal or punt it away eventually. And then when you do, unless you're going to kick it onside and recover it each time, you are eventually going to give the ball up. And to me, this is not about preventing Ohio State possessions. I mean, self-evidently, this is not about preventing Ohio State possessions. It's about limiting Ohio State possessions. And if I'm Greg Schiano and Rutgers, I don't know what other philosophy I could have going into this game. Because you look at Ohio State, you got Travion Henderson, you got Garrett Wilson, you got Chris Olave, you got Jackson Smith-Njigba, you got Jeremy Ruckert, you got C.J. Stroud. I mean, Rutgers just does not have the horses to hold up against that. If Ohio State has, let's say, if Ohio State has 14 possessions tomorrow, Ohio State is winning and probably winning by a lot. If Ohio State has 9 possessions, 10 possessions, if Rutgers can really hold the ball and kind of take the air out of the game, that's when this is at least interesting and possibly like real nerve-wracking for Ohio State.
Yeah, I think Michigan had 12 possessions. They may have both had like 12 possessions last week. Some of that was just they would move the ball a little bit and just take some time off the clock and end up punting. But, yeah, I think just the simple – I mean, just so simple. Win up front and on both sides and you'll be fine. With Rutgers, though, I just think there's going to be so much effort there, and Ohio State's going to have to match their effort. We know they have more talent. Can they match the effort? Now, they had their best week of practice last week, is what we heard. You would expect that to carry on because now they're in Big Ten play, on the road again. 2 road games to start the Big Ten season. The Minnesota game seems so long ago. I'm sure it feels long ago for Minnesota, too, after the loss to Bowling Green. Neither here nor there. But I think this is one of those things where Ohio State has to match the Rutgers just feel and their approach and their tempo, their just energy is what I'm looking for. Thank you, Tom. and
I just wanted to let you.
No. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thanks, Tom. But also, this is one of those opportunities for Ohio State to come together on the road. 72 of them or 73, whatever, and just focus on themselves and not worry about the crowd, not worrying about anything else. Some guys are having to worry about finding 200 tickets for families, but other than that, it's just Ohio against the world, Ohio against the Garden State, I guess.
Yeah, and other than there is a core of guys on this Ohio State team who are from New Jersey, from New York, for whom this is probably a very special thing. And I mean, Luke Whippler talked about trying to find like 200 tickets for people because he grew up like 15 minutes from here. And, Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Tyler Friday and Matt Jones, all these guys are from New York, from New Jersey. Friday's not playing, obviously he's out, but Matt Jones, presumably, potentially starting, depending on their Munford status. Javonte Jean-Baptiste has been, he I think was out last week, but should, could potentially be back this week. You've got this is a special game for them. For everyone else, this is just kind of like it's always, this is always a business trip. Like that's the thing, that's the bit. But this is really a business trip for these guys. It is. There's no emotion. There's no rivalry with Rutgers. It's just you've got to go. You've got to be better than you were last week. You've got because there are bigger goals than beating Rutgers this year. I think they just have to be. It sounds like the focus was there based on what we heard during interviews this week. Sounds like the focus was there during practice. Is C.J. Stroud's shoulder a little bit better? Is C.J. Stroud a little bit better? Is the offensive line a little bit better? Is the defensive line getting a little more pressure? All of those things. That's kind of the goal this week is for Ohio State, get a win, be a little bit better, and be a little bit better positioned to beat Maryland a week from tonight.
Yeah.
A week from tomorrow, sorry.
Yes. Thank you, Tom. If you guys have questions, go ahead and send them in. We will get to them here in a bit and try to get to as many as possible. C.J. Stroud is interesting to me because I've made a point, I don't know if it was on the message board or somewhere, but playing on the road for him, I think, allows him to make some mistakes in this game without fear of retribution from the fans. Because I think at this point, if he were to start slowly again, Ohio State fans, some of them would boo him. Playing on the road, I think, is better for him right now because he doesn't have to worry about that. He wouldn't. You can't let the first series then come into the second series and affect those series because I don't want to get booed. I don't want to get booed. And so being on the road, I think, is good for him to start out. Don't have to worry about it. And if you have a slow start, it doesn't matter because it's how you finish. I just hope, even with a strong finish, a slow start, whatever it is, that I just keep going back to. I hope fans give him a chance, and I think it's a small minority who aren't, but I do think that those fans would also boo him in the stadium if he starts out like Kyle McCord did last week.
Well, and that's kind of the interesting angle to this is, okay, if you're upset with C.J. Stroud, who is a second-year player, still classified as a freshman. I mean, this will be his fourth career start. If you don't think he's sufficiently good playing with a banged-up shoulder, I don't know that anything you saw last week should be convincing you that there is a clearly better option. Like Kyle McCord was good, Jack Miller was good, but they weren't blow you away incredible. And I don't know that I thought either of them were better than Stroud has been, and Stroud's playing at less than 100%. Those guys are presumably playing at 100%. So you would think with a week off, Stroud's shoulder should be better. Again, not probably 100%, but closer to 100%, assuming he doesn't take another big hit, assuming he doesn't re-aggravate it throwing the ball, something like that. You would think that he would be at least as good as those guys were last week against, this is better competition. But this is also a team that Ohio State should be able to throw the ball on. So if you've got Garrett Wilson getting open, if you've got Chris Olave getting open, if you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba getting open, these are presumably not tight windows where you really got to force it in. Rutgers, we are not expecting Max Melton, who is Rutgers' top corner. We're not expecting him to play. He had a disciplinary thing where he missed last week's game. We don't think he's going to play this week. He may not. But if he doesn't, that's Rutgers in a shorthanded spot, being even more shorthanded, being even more vulnerable to those passes. And, if Chris Olave has two steps on his guy, then you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be like that. That's a zip code throw at that point. That's just get it somewhere out there and let Chris Olave run under it. It doesn't have to be drop it in this one exact spot, which probably takes a little bit of the pressure off Stroud and probably makes it a little bit of an easier throw.
Let's talk about the Ohio State defense, where the talk all week is things are falling into place in the secondary. I would argue in the back 7, and I would argue in the front 4 as well. It's like things are starting to come together everywhere. Now, that can happen against Akron. But even aside from that performance, the guys are finding their spots. They're finding their positions. We're seeing that with Cameron Martinez at the slot corner. Sorry, cover safety. That was put one in the
Put $1 in the jar.
and so you've got Lathan Ransom at free safety, but also when they split, then you've got Ronnie Hickman back there with them, and I asked him, does he like getting back there? And he's like, said, I just like being on the field. Mm-hmm. And this is a guy who hasn't been on the field his first 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so he gets this chance, and he's the top tackler. I'm interested to see if they start doing, I keep saying this like every week, do they start involving him more in the backfield, or in the opponent's backfield? Mm-hmm. Do they get aggressive with him? Do they blitz with him? We're seeing some different blitzes from the Ohio State defense. Do you think this is one of those areas where you don't have to fear Noah Vedral so much throwing the ball and the receivers making big gains that you can be more aggressive, or you don't need to be?
I think they can be more aggressive. I would think you would want to show some of that to make Maryland worry about it. Maryland is going to be a much bigger threat in the passing game than Rutgers is. So, I guess that's sort of the eternal question is, do you want to show nothing and give Maryland nothing to look at, or do you want to show Maryland a ton and give Maryland a ton to think about and try and overwhelm a young quarterback? It's interesting to me that how different the back of that defense looks. I mean, you just went through Hickman and Lathan Ransom being kind of the two safeties, and then Cam Martinez at that cover safety spot. None of those guys are where they were at the start of the season. I mean, Hickman is sort of in that same spot, but this position is doing something a little different now. Ransom has moved from the cover safety spot to the deep safety spot. Cam Martinez is now in that cover safety spot. It's just Akron, and I feel like we need to preface everything with the it's just Akron. But last week it looked so much better that you can't help wondering, is this maybe the solution that they've been looking for so many weeks? I don't know that we're necessarily going to have a definitive answer against Rutgers, but if it looks really good against Rutgers, you're probably going to be feeling reasonably good going into that Maryland game next week.
And we can start getting to some questions. You said it's just Akron. I'm thinking, like city corporation limits where they have, you're entering the city and it's got some saying. Mm-hmm. Like, it should just be like, it's just Akron. Anytime you enter Akron, that should just be and it's not a bad thing.
Well, LeBron James was famously just a kid from Akron. The Akron Zips, just a team from Akron. It's a LeBron homage. Did you not get that? I thought it was very clever.
And LeBron James is just a small forward.
Okay, moving on. We have a lot of questions. Jordan Kapler, among others, wants to know, how are the sandwiches? Are you still hungry?
Well, we will have a Scoop Eats video for you guys. How are the sandwiches? The sandwiches they were all right. I would go again. Perhaps different sandwiches. I know more now than I did, so I think I made a mistake. My sandwich, we got the same sandwich. It was French fries, cheesesteak, chicken tenders, mozzarella sticks, and marinara sauce. It all just kind of blends together and congeals together. You miss the steak completely. But there's a lot of there, and as we said during the video, don't want to give it all away because you guys need to watch it. It's more of a late evening than a dinner type of thing for me.
It definitely has I bet this place is fantastic at 2:30 in the morning vibe. But yeah, it was good. I would go with maybe a different choice, but it was good.
Yep. And for the rest of our thoughts, you'll have to tune in. Check that out on YouTube when it gets dropped. Probably tomorrow.
Yeah, I would say tomorrow morning while I'm waking up and just getting acclimated a little bit to the day and to the hotel room. But let's jump ahead to Razzmatazz. Bottled water, beer, the hotel tap water. I don't know if that's for brushing your teeth, showering with, just in general consumption.
Well,
I have bottled water here, but that's left over from dinner.
Yeah, I would say yes.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all fine. There are Sometimes the problem with hotel room beers is that they get left behind because you like that's happened where you just don't want to take it back, or you don't really like the beer that you've got in the room, or sometimes you forget it and just want to. And other times you want to leave it as a tip.
I don't think that's how tipping works.
We have different priorities, Tom. I can laugh at myself, so I'll take this one here from Treebuck, just saying that they laughed out loud about the Burger King Plaza story.
And let's share the Burger King Plaza story very briefly. We're driving out here today, producer Kevin Noon, Tony and I, and we have not traveled with Kevin a lot. Tony and I have traveled together for years. We've not traveled with Kevin much. So we're sort of doing the get to know you thing. We know Kevin well, but we have not had the all the conversation you have when you travel, like, hey, we're driving through the middle of Pennsylvania. There's not a lot of options for food. What fast food places do you like? So we can look and see if we can find a place that's all mutually agreeable. And which places do you not like? And we went through, and Kevin said, there's really only two places I don't like. One of them is Roy Rogers, which is really only an issue in New Jersey. And the other was Burger King. I can't stand Burger King. It's like, all right, well, it's fine. We'll go somewhere where they have options other than Burger King. And we're driving through, and when you're on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, you are not flush with options. It's like every 30 miles or so, it's like, well, here's 4 things. And we got to one of those, and it was like, there was a Burger King, but there were 3 other options. There's a Popeyes and a Sparrow's and an Auntie Anne's Pretzels. It was like, okay. Everyone said, okay, this is fine. We'll stop here. We stop. We walk inside. There are our 4 options arrayed before us. Auntie Anne's Pretzels, closed. Sparrow Pizza, closed. Popeye's Chicken, closed. But there, low, like a shining city on a hill, was the very king of burgers, the Burger King. Straight ahead of us. The smiling cashiers, beaming, waiting for us, a long line of people waiting to get their delicious flame-broiled burgers. I walked in, I busted out laughing. I turned around, I just waited for Tony to walk in, have that same glint of recognition in his eyes. He busts out laughing. Kevin walks in, goes, I'll see what they have at the 7-Eleven. Friends, I haven't laughed that hard in quite a while.
Completely yell laughing in public. I don't care who was there. I think a good time was had by Hull. And really, it's always, it's not the destination, it's the journey. Mm-hmm. That was a little bit of it. It was the destination. That was the best part of it, I think. The journey, not so much. Destination, so much.
So much.
Did you have something to add, Kevin?
No, I want to keep our rating on Facebook, on YouTube, and I'm not going to sit there and say what I want to say, but I hate you both.
Tough but fair.
Yes. Jordan Kapler again, he went on the comment about booing C.J. Stroud, said, booing quarterbacks, come on, Tony, we're not Oklahoma.
Well,
that's boomerang quarterbacks.
Yes, no, it hasn't happened yet per se. The offense was booed, I believe, against Oregon a little bit. Now, again, we can't hear everything because we're behind a window. Tom, you're out there. Do you remember some booing going on?
There were some boos. This was not 100,000 people booing. It was, you're going to have some people booing. And it's not like you have when the Ohio State offense goes 3 and out. It's not like you have a bunch of Ohio State fans cheering to drown them out. So it's going to stand out a little bit, but it wasn't a ton. It wasn't enough that it's oh, this is going to be a story. It was just kind of it was there.
It's annoyed fans.
Right, it's annoyed fans and people who aren't necessarily thinking, hey, this is a guy making his second career start. He's only been on campus 1 year before this. This is a pretty good defense. You're not immediately going to be outstanding. Not everyone is going to have the Justin Fields trajectory, and that's okay. You can still be a good quarterback and not be Justin Fields 2 games into your career.
Am I wrong, though, if he had started with just his normal start or a Kyle McCord start, do you think he would have been booed by 500 people?
And his normal just being a little amped up and airmailing a couple throws. I think at this point people are getting annoyed enough at the fact that they've seen it so many times that it's not just oh, well, he had one bad throw. It's just oh, here we go again. And I don't think that's a lot of people. That's not a significant chunk of the Ohio State fan base. But it's enough that it's you're going to hear it, and if you're really sensitive to it, you're going to get upset about it. But I don't know how much deep down that really bothers him. I couldn't tell you on that.
Let's see here. Ed Rogers, will a quarterback actually run the ball for Ohio State? Will we actually have positive yards on a punt return? And also then says Rutgers will score at least 20.
Rutgers scoring 20 is that's a lot, Tom.
You picked them to score 17, so it's really not that many.
When I say they're only going to score 17, I mean only 17. Anything more than that is a lot to me because I like to be accurate. And if I'm not accurate, then that's a lot because I'm usually pretty accurate. But what was the punting? Because I had a bold prediction about the punt and kick return. Garrett Wilson averaging 1.7 yards per punt return right now. And you remember when he started returning punts as a freshman, it was like a big play waiting to happen. Mm-hmm. Now it's a fair catch waiting to happen, or it's I'm going to catch this, run backwards a little bit, and then get tackled. I would like to see just maybe let's get going forward a little bit and see what happens there. I also, Tom, wouldn't even mind a little razzle-dazzle, a little trickery, as they say, to give Greg Schiano some of his own medicine.
Yeah, that's something you just haven't seen out of Ohio State. I think for years and years and years, you haven't seen like a throwback on a kickoff or a throwback on a punt or anything like that. That's something that if they ever did it, it would go for 1,000,000 yards because they haven't done it. Maybe that's something you save for Penn State if the offense is really struggling. The reason you haven't seen it is because Ohio State's offense is just putting up 40 points every week for the last 5 years, so you don't have to. You've been able to out-talent people, and there is an inherent risk in a play like that. You can throw it backwards, and it's a fumble, and if the other guy doesn't get on it, it's a loose ball, and then it can be a disaster, and you're just inviting disaster with that. So that's not a risk Ohio State has felt the need to take in the past. It could be this year. To the question about will the quarterback run, my suspicion is no. I mean, if C.J. Stroud is playing, they're still trying to protect that shoulder. I think they're going to limit the number of hits he takes as much as they possibly can. So I would expect, again, not to see the quarterback run, not to see C.J. Stroud keeping it there. Maybe if it's a goal line situation and it's like a 1-yard walk-in kind of thing, maybe then. But, middle of the field, there's no reason to expose his shoulder to another hit.
Yeah, unless they need some yards, it's 4th down or whatever. You got to do what you've got to do to get some yards, but they're not going to put him in a position to get hurt.
El Suzabo, did Fleming make the trip? Still on injured list? ? Also, take Tom's pillows away. His predictions were so bad. He needs to sleep on the cot of shame, sans pillows.
I like that. No, Tom. Please be quiet. I like that Sue is already telling you how bad your predictions are. Is she speaking about last week's or this week's? Probably both.
Obviously last week.
No.
That is what earned me the cot of shame.
Yeah, probably all weeks. I think this is just a general statement that Sue says every week. And also, she's trying to get in for next week as well. Your Maryland predictions, Tom, terrible. Next week, floor. That's floor. Floor of shame.
I do like the idea that the number of predictions you get, if you get 1 correct, you get the mattress. If you get 2 correct, you get the pillow. 3, you get a blanket. Like I like that. I think that's intriguing. Maybe we need to change our scoring system next week to reflect that.
I also like the fact that you have no blanket and you're right next to the air conditioning. We're going to need about 62 degrees here tonight, Kevin. I think there's a lot of guys in the room.
One of you gets poison and one of you gets pizza. What happens if we do that? Poison pizza? Oh no, I'm making 2 trips. All right, let me jump in here and say, Ed Rogers, why couldn't the defensive coaches figure out things quicker?
Yes. Why couldn't they figure things out quicker? This is, Ryan Day said after the Oregon game, I made some bad assumptions. Mm-hmm. So that was part of it. Last year was kind of a write-off for Day and his staff, and he figured, it was an impossible season to really gauge how things are, how things need to be, what fixes need to be made. You were always missing somebody, always missing more than somebody, multiple people. So you figure it's hard to even judge based on what happened last year. So you put a plan in place that you think is going to work this year. And a lot of that is based on stuff you've wanted to do. And they weren't able to find out that they couldn't do it until they tried to do it and couldn't. And kept trying to do it. And also were doing some things they shouldn't have been doing. You lose Josh Proctor, that hurts. The scheme itself, I think, has been the bigger issue, and that's been getting addressed.
Well, yeah, and you go back to after that Oregon game, Ryan Day said, is it coaching, is it scheme, is it personnel? And I think that you have seen now it was surprise choice D, all of the above, where you've got different personnel in different spots and not just all caused by injury. Like some of it is Josh Proctor's injury, but also you know, Cam Martinez was not the cover safety at the beginning of the season. What they were doing with Ronnie Hickman, that's scheme. That's also coaching. That's a little different. I mean, you have Matt Barnes calling the defense now instead of Kerry Combs. There were pieces of all of that. They're doing, I mean, go back and read Ross Fulton's articles from after the first and second games this year, and you're going to see him screaming about all the stuff that Ohio State was not doing then that they needed to do, which they're now doing. I mean, there was a bunch of different stuff, and with last year being a weird year, they just didn't have the reps. They didn't have the opportunity to see these guys out on the field to see, can they succeed, can they fail? The Rutgers game last year is a great example. You didn't see the backups nearly as much in the Rutgers game because when Ohio State got up, then Rutgers came back and it was just close enough that you couldn't see the backups. That's why C.J. Stroud didn't throw a pass last year. That's why Jack Miller didn't throw a pass last year. It's why they didn't get to see all of these other guys playing last year, some of the younger guys. So you didn't know what you had with the linebackers because you just saw a lot of Pete Werner and Tuff Borland and Justin Hilliard and Baron Browning last year. You didn't see a lot of Dallas Gant, a lot of Kayvon Pope, and a lot of Taraja Mitchell, so you didn't know what you had. Once you saw that this year, then they didn't necessarily like what they saw from a couple of those guys, and now a couple of those guys aren't on the team. Taraja Mitchell is maybe losing some playing time to Steel Chambers. Steel Chambers only moved over to the linebacker room over the summer. I mean, they haven't had that much time to evaluate these guys. They haven't had as much time as normal to evaluate these guys. That's one of the big reasons they were a little behind on that stuff.
And we said after the Minnesota game, like the defenses you see for Minnesota and Oregon are going to be completely different because it requires different defensive fronts and different defensive alignments and heavier packages. And we wouldn't know what the Ohio State defense really looks like until Oregon. And we said at the time, if it still looks this bad, then that's the bad news.
Yeah.
And so it was bad news, yes. Two more?
Two more?
Sure.
Two more, three more.
Tom, 3 more, 2 more?
However many good ones you got.
Okay, we're out. No, Danny says, thanks so much for your investment of your time to promote Buckeye football. Watch many scoop updates on YouTube and SEC country to stay informed.
That's a great question, Tom.
I was going to end on that.
No. Thank you for that.
No, that's very nice. We do appreciate you listening. You appreciate you watching. Appreciate you reading our message board. I mean, all that stuff. We do appreciate. If you guys aren't watching, if you guys aren't listening, we don't get to come on these trips. If there's no one for us to talk to, we don't get to come on these trips. So
yeah, I definitely appreciate it. Always appreciate the feedback. One thing, Tom, that I don't know that we've ever done, and I don't know that we're going to start now.
But I'm so scared where this sentence is going. But go on.
It rhymes with super chat. Like we've never done that. Maybe eventually we will. But your thanks are thanks enough right now. For now.
I was going to say, we actually got a super chat in one of the last live shows that we did for $25. I don't remember who, which kills me, but I'm going to look that one up.
We should get a producer to tell us stuff like this.
Well, yes.
Next question.
Next question. Jimmy Kramer, how does Rutgers Stadium rank in comparison to other Big Ten stadiums?
It's not bad. It's unremarkable in every way. It's just, I mean, like they have a cannon, which is interesting. It has the birthplace of college football, which you remember seeing in like the old NCAA football games. It's like, oh yeah, I remember seeing it. And then it's like, the press box food's good. They always feed us great stuff. We had prime rib here 4 years ago, I think, and turkey or something 2 years ago. It was, yeah, I mean, like the food's always good in the press box. But I mean, the stadium itself is just like, I mean, it's not. It's bigger than Ryan Field at Northwestern. But, you know, Ryan Field is fine. Purdue, it's in that like, it's probably maybe a little below Purdue. I've never been to Illinois, but it's not as nice as Minnesota, which is new. I would put it right around Maryland, which is like, yeah, it's, you know, it's a state, you know, it's got end zones and uprights and, you know, like you're going through the notable elements of design elements of the stadium, and it's like, wow, the bowl banners in the end zone are all kind of depressing because it's like, hey, the International Bowl. It's like, is that a thing? It's like, well, friends, it was. And Greg Schiano got to go to Toronto. And that's the thing that's commemorated on the stadium. It was like, oh, well, that's a thing. The 1978 Garden State Bowl. Is that a thing?
The Eleanor Roosevelt Bowl.
The 1978 Garden State Bowl. Yes, that is really a thing. Is it still a thing? No, but they got to go like 20 miles like northeast to here to go play in Giant Stadium. Yeah, it's wholly unreal. There are stadiums where I'm going to be like, you need to go take that trip. When we go to Nebraska, I'm going to be saying, if you are not in Nebraska right now, you need to get to Nebraska. This is an awesome trip. Rutgers is like, yeah, no, it's fine.
To me, it reminds me of Maryland, and not that I can remember what Rutgers Stadium is like. I just remember thinking, this kind of reminds me of Maryland, like the first time I saw it. But I prefer Maryland because it's just different. It's a little bit different than most stadiums, but probably similar to Rutgers based on what my memory tells me, which, Tom, my memory, a steel trap.
Okay, I was too busy talking about the situation in TWOW, but in the chat.
Oh, yes,
The
yes.
circumstance,
Kevin was talking about how we needed Jersey Shore names. So instead of the situation, I decided to call myself the circumstance. And instead of JWoww, he's TWoww. So.
And I'm ShamWow. I pick up lots of things.
Get the ShamWow guy face, right?
Last one here.
Yes, last one.
Where goes
Please.
one asks, what will be the trick play that Rutgers scores with?
Trick play that Rutgers scores with, I could see like a Philly special type of thing where you've got an aggressive defense chasing the ball, and then somebody leaks out, or you get the reverse to the quarterback, the throw to the quarterback. So I would go with that one. Maybe a fake reverse on the kickoff, that fake or an actual reverse on the kickoff where you got a guy coming down and faking the give.
Yeah, and maybe a fake field goal where, if it's kind of third quarter and it's a 10-point game, Rutgers lines up for field goal. It's a plausible field goal situation. It's 4th and 3 on the 17-yard line or the 10-yard line or whatever. And the holder gets up and I don't know if Rutgers' long snapper is there or a backup quarterback is their holder or whatever, but you throw a pass out of that, something like that, where it's not like lunacy, but it's like, okay, this is a plausible field goal situation. You're not going to kill them for kicking a field goal to cut it from a 2-score game to a 1-score game, but you get the touchdown and all of a sudden it's a field goal game instead of a 7-point game. Something like that. I expect them to try and just throw whatever they got at Ohio State, because if it's close in the second half, like, what do you have to lose? Greg Schiano is already showing, they won 3 games last year that were Big Ten games. They hadn't won a Big Ten game in like years before that. They hadn't won 3 Big Ten games in probably the previous 3 years combined. But they won 3 Big Ten games last year. They are 3-1 right now, gave Michigan a pretty good run. If they beat Ohio State, if they beat Penn State this year, that becomes like a signature win, and all the big recruits who are here tomorrow, guys who have Ohio State on their list. There are looking at the names of Rutgers recruits who are visiting. I was like, oh yeah, I know who that is. Oh yeah, I know who that is. You're not used to that. Like, it was never 2 years ago. The Rutgers recruits visiting were like choosing between this and like beauty school. Like, it was just, this is like a different program now. This is a different program now, where you don't have the beauty school dropouts playing anymore. There you go. We got there. Tony was just really begging me to do the grease thing. I could read your mind. So yes, there no more beauty school dropouts. You've got Chase Basantis, offensive lineman who Ohio State wants. He is going to be here tomorrow. You've got guys coming up from Florida who Ohio State wants. Troy Bowles is coming up. Those are big recruits. If Rutgers can win this game, that becomes a proof of concept thing. That becomes like just a vault for this program to really get that Greg Schiano program to the next step, which it's coming. This is not going to be this is going to be a 6-6 team this year probably. This is not going to be a 6-6 team forever. You're going to get to an 8-4. Can he get them to a 9-3, 10-2?
I also, maybe the biggest trick play is no trick plays. Ohio State's looking for them. Maybe it slows them down and just allows for some regular plays.
The board asked for Sopranos names, so I said Little T and Tommy Almonds instead of Polly Walnuts.
Of all the Sopranos names you could have gone with, I'm fine with those. I'm gonna just, nope. Nope. We're gonna stay right there. We're good.
Yeah,
Well, I was going to maybe give one of you Furio or something, the most annoying character.
no, I think we know who Furio is.
Johnny Gaber doesn't work for us.
Our producer, Christopher, our producer.
All right, I think we're sufficiently off the rails, and
It's time for beer.
perhaps we'll see. Want to thank you all for. Are you done?
It was one of LL Cool J's lesser known songs. Urban Meyer played that one the week of Iowa.
Yes.
game.
Oh, yes. It does not work. So, Tom, that will do it. Kevin, that will do it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for watching. As always, check out BuckeyeScoop.com, and you can also find us at YouTube.com/BuckeyeScoop for videos such as this, but also
Good ones.
better videos. So, look there. Thank you guys. Seriously, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for the questions, and we will talk to you guys tomorrow.